All right, our next session in Adobe Animate is about text animations. I'm going to show you one. Here's what we got. When I run this little movie, there are 4 different text objects. I've got Purdue, University, Boiler Up, and Hammer Down. Those are 4 different things. And they're all animated kind of in different ways. Purdue and University are moving, and then Boiler Up is kind of getting bigger. It's growing. And then Hammer Down is fading in. You have to kind of watch it carefully, but it starts like invisible and it fades in as time goes on. So we're going to learn how, in this lesson, we're going to learn how to do this. And I'm going to move pretty fast here. So let me close this copy and do a demo. All right, so I'm going to make a new movie. And we'll get that going. Now, I'm going to zoom this back a little bit because I want you to be able to see what's going on. And I'm going to make my stage black. I'm going to use that Purdue University idea, but you need 4 text objects, and it could be anything school appropriate that you want to do. All right, so let's begin with this. Here's the sequence. There's a sequence to this, and you have to kind of learn it, right? It's like just practice. That's what we're doing. So I'm going to go get the type tool, the text tool. I'm going to click once, and I want this text. I'm going to use my caps lock, and I want it to say Purdue. Next, once I have the text on there, now I could come over here. I'm going to switch to the black arrow, and I could come over here to the right, and I could play with, I could change the font, I could change the color, I could play with the size of the text. I can make any adjustments I want to make over here. I've kind of already got that set up for this movie, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. All right, so now what I'm going to do is with that text, I'm going to tap the F8 key on my keyboard and click OK. Now, if you don't have an F8 key, you can right-click and convert to symbol. That's what F8 is. It's a keyboard shortcut for convert to symbol. And so when I did that F8, there were some things on that box, but you just click OK. You don't have to worry about any of those. All right, so now I've got this on here, and so I'm going to right-click and create Classic Tween. I'm going to right-click on the text, on the word Purdue, and create Classic Tween. Yay. On the timeline, it has stretched out a purple bar. It went about 30 frames down, but I want it to be longer than that today. If you look at our handout that goes with today's assignment, this has to be at least 60 frames. It could be longer, but I'd like for it to be at least 60. I'll go 65. So I'm going to come down to frame 65, and I'm going to tap F6. So that's another part of the process there. All right. So I've got this is called an animation span, and I've got this animation span stretching from frame 1 to frame 65. So I'm going to rewind. I'm going to take my time indicator back to the beginning, and now here's what I'm going to think about. At the beginning, at frame 1, where do I want, what do I want to do with this text? Well, in my plan, what I want to do is I want to have it sitting over here off stage, right? I want to get it off stage. And then I'll fast forward, I'll grab my time indicator and I'll fast forward and think, okay, at the end of the span, I want it sitting like right about there, looks good. So when I press enter, the computer takes care of everything between frame 1 and frame 65, where, I told it where I want it to start and where I want it to stop, and the computer takes care of everything in between. That's why this is called tweening, right? Okay, so that one's done. Yay, that's working. So I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to rewind. That's important. I'm going to rewind it back to the beginning. And I'm just going to go through these steps again. It's the same exact steps with some different text, and I'll do a slightly different thing. So I'm going to get the type tool. I'll click once. This is going to say University. I'll switch to my black arrow. I'm going to get that sitting like right about here. And I'll press F8 on the keyboard, right? Or like I said, if you don't have an F8 on your keyboard, you can right-click and convert to symbol is what you want to look for. But I'm going to press F8. On this box, like I said, you don't really have to worry about any of this. This is all fine. I'm not going to change any of this at all, so I'll just click OK there. Now down on the timeline, I want to just make my spans. Oh wait, sorry, got to do something else. I'm going to right-click and create Classic Tween. Okay, now on the timeline, I'm going to click on that frame 65, and tap F6. Okay, So I'll rewind back here to the beginning and think, okay, now at the beginning, what do I want to do with the word university? Where do I want it to be? Well, I think I would like to have it like over here. I'm going to put it over here. And then if I fast forward, if I drag my time indicator forward and I think, okay, at the end of the span, when I get down to frame 65, where do I want that word university? I'll just get it positioned in the spot that I want it. So now when I press enter, I've got these words flying in from opposite directions like this. Okay, that's working. So far, so good. So I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to rewind my time indicator. Same steps over again. Back to the type tool. Click once. And this is going to say, this is just, if you're not familiar, it's a Purdue University kind of phrase here, boiler up, all right? I'll switch to my black arrow, I'll press F8, and I'll click OK. I will right-click on this text, and I'll create a classic tween. I'll go on the timeline down to the end where I want to be, and I'll tap F6 down there. All right, now on this one, I think here's what I want to do. I'm going to rewind this, and I'm going to kind of put this right about here. And on this one, instead of just having it like slide in from the side, I'm going to tap the letter Q. That's the transform tool. And at the beginning of the span, I'm going to make that text really small. It's really tiny. At the end of the span, I want it to be bigger. And I'm also just going to make sure I have it positioned where I want it. Just getting everything set up for how I want it to wind up there. All right, so again, remember at the beginning I said, let's make that text really small at the beginning. And then at the end, let's have it bigger. And the computer will take care of everything in between frame 1 and frame 65 where I told it, okay, this is the end. All right, so here we go. And now boiler up is doing its thing. So I've got Purdue and University sliding in from the sides, and boiler up is kind of just growing, coming right at us here. So it's all working according to plan, at least my plan. All right, so I'm going to lock that layer. I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to rewind. I have one more to go. I'll take the type tool, and this is going to say, again, it's a Purdue University thing. So if you're familiar with Purdue, you've heard it before probably, but whatever. All right, boiler up, hammer down. That's kind of how Purdue people talk to each other. All right. So I've got the text done. I'm going to tap F8 on my keyboard. You get your text. You tap F8 on this convert to symbol thing. Click OK. I'm going to right-click on the text and create a classic tween. On the timeline, I'm going to come down here, and I'm just making I'm going to tap F6 here to make all my layers match in length. They could be different lengths if you want them to, but I'm just going to make them all match for today. Now here's what I'm going to do with old hammer down. I'm going to rewind this back to the beginning. And if you followed all these steps in sequence, this will work. I'm going to click on the letters that say hammer down. I'm going to click on the text. Over here on the right-hand side where it says color effects, none. I'm going to drop this menu and I'm going to go to alpha. Alpha is the same thing as transparency or opacity in Photoshop. Opacity, remember opacity? So I'm going to set the alpha at 0. At the beginning. 0 means you can't see it. All right. Now I'm going to go down to the end. I'll fast forward down to the end. I'll make sure I click on the letters, and I'm pretty sure it's already this way, but I'm going to make sure. I'm going to click on, I'll go to color effects where it says none. I'm going to go to alpha, and I'm going to make sure that this is up at 100. So what's going to happen here at the beginning, the alpha value of hammer down is 0. And you can't see it. That means it's transparent. At the end, the alpha value of hammer down is 100. So what it's going to do in between there is go from 0 up to 100 slowly. All right, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It'll just work its way up to 100. So it's going to look like a fade in and becomes more and more visible as time goes by. All right, I'm going to run that. And look, I have my fabulous text animation. Now, when you put yours together, you don't have to do it just like I did, right? You can try, various things. You can try other kinds of things, but I have animated things like the position. On Purdue and University, what I did was animate position. I made them move. On Boiler Up, yeah, the big idea there on Boiler Up was I animated how big it was. I made it start off small and get bigger. On Hammer Down, I animated its visibility, right? I used that alpha property to start it at an alpha of 0 and bring it up to an alpha of 100 so it looks like what you got is a fade in. All right. So that's different ways to animate things, and you can do it, you can do it any way you want to do it. You don't have to do it just like me. But that's what we're working on today. A 4-layer, 4-item text animation following those steps that are on the handout on Google Classroom and shown in this movie. All right. There